Hello, we'll be going over notes involving graphing. These are the things I talked to you about in class. So we're just going to go over it again so you can reference this if you need to do anything in the future and to kind of get you to see how these things work. All right, this is a graph. Now, a graph has the y-axis that goes up and down and the x-axis that goes horizontal left to right. Now, you're required to label the axis. So the rules are to label each axis with the watt and the units. So this is what it would look like. If this is your y-axis and this is your x-axis down here, then distance is the watt, and then in parentheses you put the m for meters. Down here, time, and in parentheses, SEC for seconds, the units. So write the word out for what it is that's on here, and then in parentheses put the unit. So let's see how that looks. You would write it out, distance, and meters. And down here you'd write time and seconds. Okay, now how do you title a graph? You have to have a title up here. You have to have a title. All right, to look at titles, the rules are usually we're just going to put whatever the label is for the y versus the label of the x. So in this instance, distance versus time. Distance is on the y-axis, time is on the x, distance versus time. Now, to find slope, you do the y2 minus y1. I guess I better change that a little bit. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And since distance is on the y-axis and time is on the x-axis, down here, distance divided by time gives you speed. So slope in this instance would mean the speed of the object you're looking at. So you could call this a speed graph because that's what the slope is going to tell you. When you look at a graph, it's the slope of the graph that you're really trying to find. The whole reason to graph it is to see what happens over time, and that's what the slope tells you. So let's go back and we'll name this distance versus time. Okay, graphing data. Let me pause this video and I'm going to put a data table up here and then we'll graph the data. Okay, so here's our data over here on the right. Our distances are going to be 0, 5, 10, 15, and 20. So when we make our y, there's 20 on here, so every line has to be 1. Now, I can write 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. See how messy it's getting? So what we usually try and do, if I only have very specific points, which happens a lot on the y-axis, I have very specific points over here. So what I want to do is just say, okay, here's the 0. Then I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to put a 5 right here. 6, 7, 8, 9, then a 10 right here. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so now I don't have a whole lot of things for me to look at, and all my data points ought to be across this area because they all have to be on the 5 for the distance. Now for time, my time goes 2, 4, 6, 8, or it goes 4, 8, 12, 16. So I need 16 going across. But since I don't need any odds, why clutter things up by putting every number in there? Why don't I just go, okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. All right. So now notice that my numbering system is spread out, so I use most of the graph. So because I'm going to go all the way over here, and I'm going to go all the way to the top. That means I'm using most of my graph. So even though we only have 4 data points over here on the left-hand side, the 5, the 10, the 15, and the 20, you can't just use the first 4 lines and have this area not being used. That will either be a 0, or you will be given back the sheet and asked to do it again until you turn it in corrected. Okay, you need to know that. All right, so let's do some graphing. All right, what you do is you take all of this stuff and you look at one guy at a time. There's two guys on here. There's number 1 and number 2. So you go first guy, 0, 0. So that's a dot right down there. Then 5 and 2. So 5 on the left and 2. 10 and 4. 10 and 4. 15 and 6. 6. And 20 and 8. And this would give you, use your ruler and make the straight line that connects all these guys. And then do this other guy. So what you can do, a lot of times what I tell people to do is, once you've gotten the data down, maybe kind of put something over very lightly, kind of do something that lets you know not to use these guys again. And now we're going from this one to this one. So another 0, 0. Then a 5, 4. So 5 at 4. 10 at 8. 15 at 12. And 20 at 16. Okay, so that's our two datas. Notice we've got good straight lines. Now we need to talk about slope. So what I want to do now is I'm going to get rid of the data so we can work over here while we look at our graph. Now, first of all, in math, all you use are numbers, but in science, our numbers mean something. These aren't just 5, 10, 15, and 20. It's 5 meters, 10 meters, 15 meters, 20 meters. So do the math the same, but don't forget about our units. That's going to be important. So slope is y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So all you do, choose 2 points over here. I'll choose the 20 and the 10. Okay, so the top one is always the 2. It's just all based on how far away you are from 0. So this is the second one you would come to. So this point goes first. So that's 20 for the y, this guy. And what's the time all the way down? He's at 8. So since it's y2 over x2, it's 20 over 8. Then my second point right here is 10 for the y and 4 for the time. Make sure that you're very specific, that when you start this over here, look back, 20 minus 10. A lot of times people get the first number correct, but then when they get down here to this next number, they'll flip them, and they'll come to this one and put the 4 at the top and the 10 at the bottom, and that will really mess you up. So let's not do that. All right, everybody back in there? All right, so let's do the math. Oh, let's just kind of do this now. It's not just the numbers 20 and 10. It's 20 minus 10 meters and 8 minus 4 seconds. So if you put it in your calculator looking just like this, using the parentheses, you must put the parentheses in there because these minus signs, mathematically, these have functions. So you put that in there. You can do it by hand and go 10 over 4. But then you might put that in your calculator. But if you put it in the calculator just as it looks, what you're going to get is 2.5. Now, what did you do with these two things? Nothing. So they come down here and stay in that relationship. So just remember, when you're finding slope, once you find it, put the units for the y-axis divided by the units for the x-axis. So that's how you find slope. It's an easy process. Hopefully this will help you with your graphing activities and answer some of your questions and introduce you to how these YouTube videos look in my class. All right, thanks a lot, guys.